everyone, Vanessa here, and welcome back to Passport Pages. Today I'm coming to you not as a travel enthusiast, which is my hobby, but as a clinical biochemist, which I've been working as for many years post-grad school. I had a completely different video planned, but I think this is too crucial to not address as both a traveler and biochemist, so I'm going to give you my opinion and breakdown from a purely scientific perspective, especially as far as travel is concerned. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So a little background, when I first began my career in 2009, SARS was still a big part of research, even though it was mostly contained in 2003. That's how long it takes for vaccines to be developed. And my first job after graduate school was research in a lab testing vaccines as an antidote for the virus. And what immunologists and biochemists have discovered in recent days is that SARS, which stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome, and the coronavirus are very similar, which from a research perspective is a good thing. So transmission seems to be the same, which is through close person-to-person contact, and then each infected person spreads the virus to others through coughing or sneezing, or by leaving germs on a surface that a non-infected person then touches, and then if that person touches their face or mouth area, then they will contract it. So transmission is very similar. Now, disclaimer here that as a biochemist, I have to state, viruses constantly mutate, right? So the way the virus spreads and infects people could also change over time. But for now, it seems to be transmitted via respiratory droplets from one person to another. Now, many reports have spread fear that the virus can be transmitted through packages delivered from China, and so many of us buy things from that country, which is of course the nation of origin for the virus. And this is why people who aren't clinical scientists or medical professionals need to be really careful about saying something is dangerous or not. Your claims in and of themselves are dangerous, so be very careful with that on my channel. As of now, there is no evidence to support transmission through imported goods, and here is the scientific explanation. What we call the survivability of the virus so far seems to be very low, which means there is a low risk of spread from products that usually takes days or even weeks to be shipped from China. More specifically, let's say worst case scenario, you order something from China and the packer sneezes on it. Even if the package initially contains the virus, by the time you were to receive it, the virus would no longer be viable. And remember how I mentioned that it's very similar to SARS? Well, SARS could only survive a few hours on the surface of an object, so that seems to be the case with the coronavirus as well, although disclaimer again, because it's so new, there hasn't been sufficient research on the resiliency of the virus like there has been for SARS. Okay, so now let's talk about what you're all really wondering, which is of course travel. There's no question this has already affected airlines, cruises, casinos, and resorts as travel fears continue to spread. So I will be discussing this again from a purely scientific perspective. So as you all know by now, the virus originated in the Chinese city of Wuhan, and both domestic and foreign airlines operate dozens of flights each day from the US to China. It is the CDC's decision as to which American airports will be screened for passengers to and from Asia, but as of now, and this is a very fluid situation, JFK, San Francisco, O'Hare in Chicago, LAX, and Atlanta are the airports currently being screened as they receive the most traffic, but of course that could potentially expand. So how exactly is this scanning performed? In both Asia and the US, passengers are scanned with a thermal device to measure their temperature, as fever is a high indication. If a passenger does have a fever, they will likely undergo additional screening and even off-site monitoring at a medical facility where they will be tested for the presence of the pathogen. As far as precautions, like with any cold, flu, or virus, if you are traveling, especially in an airport, wash your hands as much as possible, and this is very important. Don't touch your face, and if you need to cough or sneeze, of course, contain it into a tissue preferably, and not into the air, just very basic practices. Keep your distance from people who appear to be sick, especially if coughing or sneezing, but again, these are general practices, especially during cold and flu season, which unfortunately is what we're in the midst of. I will be flying myself in a week and plan to bring wipes for both the seat backs and tray tables, which generally speaking are a petri dish of germs, so that's another precaution that I'll be taking as well. Another thing to note is the virus does appear to have an incubation period of up to 2 weeks before infected persons begin to show signs and symptoms of contracting the virus, and that's unusually high, so the danger of that is people could travel and inadvertently infect others before realizing they even have the virus. So that's why all these precautions are especially important. But try not to panic or spread fear. Much of the media has been doing so, and as someone who's worked for the Infectious Diseases Division of NIH, it's nothing more alarming than many other things we've seen over the years. So just practice caution. Moving forward, it's been very interesting to me, shall we say, even questionable, that vaccines have supposedly already been developed for the virus. So let me just say, as someone who has been behind the scenes with clinical trial management for infectious diseases and extensive bench work on vaccines themselves, and I even took vaccine development courses in grad school, on average, a vaccine comes to market usually in 5 to 7 years minimum. So yeah, without starting any conspiracy theories, I'm very skeptical as to what is actually happening, the origin of the virus, etc. NIH will begin developing protocols in the next 3 months, but they take 1 to 2 years to be approved to begin research. I did the job of protocol specialist at NIH for years. So unfortunately, none of this will help us in 2020, so use your best judgment. If you don't feel comfortable traveling, then don't. If you do, practice extreme caution, as I mentioned, and like everything else, this will eventually pass. There you have my scientific perspective on the coronavirus and travel, and if you'd like to see similar videos in the future with my perspective as a biochemist, let me know in the comments below. As always, I'd appreciate you showing your support for my channel by subscribing, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye everyone.